you, Minister. Senator Payman.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Indigenous Australians, Senator Gallagher. The regrettable outcome of the Voice referendum has deepened the divide and left a profound sense of betrayal among many First Nations people. As we confront the worsening conditions in Indigenous communities, it is crucial to reflect on how we arrived at this juncture. According to New Horizons report in 2014, as little as just 26% of demand for alcohol and other drug services were being met, and since then the funding for AOD treatment services has not increased. I travelled around WA listening to many Indigenous communities who raised with me many local issues and feel they don't have a voice. Will the Minister develop an Indigenous-specific alcohol and other drug strategy informed by the needs of First Nations people, as recommended by the WA Network of Alcohol and Other Drug Agencies report?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, and I thank Senator Payman for the question. This government has a proud record in this last 2 years on focusing on delivering practical progress in Indigenous health. Since coming to government, we've been taking a lot of different steps to tackle the critical gaps in health outcomes for Indigenous Australians under Minister Burney's leadership, under Minister Carney's leadership, under Minister McCarthy's leadership. There's a range of different programs, Senator Payman, that are going into either training First Nations health workers across the country, where we already have 180 students being enrolled, because that is key to providing services to remote parts of Australia. Also around cancer care, also around renal care. The issue you raise around alcohol and other drugs, I will take further advice on. I'm not aware of. I'm sure that there is work going on in that area. I don't have it in front of me, but I know we are taking a very broad approach to supporting First Nations communities. I also agree with Senator Payman that it was a regrettable outcome from the referendum, and I think certainly from our government's point of view, right throughout that time and that debate and subsequently to the vote, we haven't changed the amount of effort that's going into the practical delivery of services and supports to First Nations communities right around the country, whether it be in metropolitan areas or more remote areas, as you outlined in your question, in WA or in the Northern Territory or anywhere else. We are 100% committed to making a difference and improving the health outcomes of First Nations Australians in this country.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Payman, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Minister, for the answer, and I look forward to getting more information on that strategy. How does the government plan to address the alarming overrepresentation of Indigenous Australians in the criminal justice system, where there are 13 times more likely to be imprisoned than non-Indigenous Australians?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, as Senator Payman may remember, we took some commitments to the last election about justice reinvestment. That was led by Senator Pat Dodson, also a Labor senator from WA, and Minister Burney. And those programs are being rolled out because we recognised in opposition and argued for many years from opposition about the need to tackle the high imprisonment rate of First Nations adults and young people in this country, and committed to reducing imprisonment rates. And there are 30 community-led justice reinvestment initiatives across Australia, with 20 of them funding or being funded already. And these are based on successful programs which seek to provide support to reduce the amount of recidivism going on and to make sure we are providing culturally responsive justice reinvestment programs in those local communities. There's plenty of evidence.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has now expired. Senator Payman, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Considering the significant gaps in Year 12 completion rates and life expectancy between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians, what specific measures will the government implement to give Indigenous Australians a voice to improve educational outcomes and life expectancy?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, all of those are areas covered by Closing the Gap, where there are programs, and these are an important report that's provided annually to the Parliament on improving the educational outcomes of First Nations Australians, ensuring that we're dealing with some of those health issues that we've outlined, looking at issues around justice and offending, a whole range of areas that we have to continue to work on. And we are making progress in some areas, but we need to do more. But I can tell you the amount of effort and investment going into this area is unprecedented, because we are, and housing, which is also a critical issue. We have a record housing investment that Minister Burney led when she was in that position, which will actually make a difference. If you have a house and you have stable living arrangements, you're more likely to finish school. And so all of this is interconnected, and we're all focused on improving the lives of First Nations Australians.